Now, why would W be in the Matrix talking about the war with Mexico? Simple. It's all about Texas. Hey, as Sarah would say, I can see Mexico from here. Some folks today have made comments that places like California and Arizona are occupied territories, as in occupied Mexico. Not true at all. They're annexed territories. The difference is that occupied territory might one day be returned. Annexed, well, duh, it means permanent. How did this all come about? The annexation. It has to do with Texas and manifest destiny. America believed that they had a God-given right to all of the land between the Atlantic and the Pacific. Now sure, a few Indian tribes in the Empire of Mexico were in the way, but the folks figured it was the right thing to do. Shucks, you can make a case that manifest destiny had some ethical issues, like the Indian Removal Act, and for sure, the war with Mexico has to go down as maybe one of the most unjust wars ever waged. But that is all a done deal. So let's talk about how the deal got done. In 1836, Texas became an independent country. Sure, bad things happened, like the massacre at the Alamo, but Sam Houston and all the other Texas heroes ultimately whooped old Santa Anna. The Mexicans thought the loss of Texas would be temporary, so they did not like it much when the U.S. Congress, catch the word, annexed Texas as a state. The annexation was a bit of an irritation to Mexico, but did not result in a declaration of war. That was basically caused by the actions of the American Army. Zachary Taylor moved to the border, which to the Mexicans, they believed it was the Natchez River. But Taylor, he went south all the way to the Rio Grande. This caused the Mexican Army to fight a skirmish with Taylor. President Polk and Congress saw that action as an invasion of U.S. territory. It was a good excuse anyway to get on with manifest destiny. The U.S. declared war on Mexico in 1846. The plan was simple. Move in troops and grab the land that we wanted. So we sent Fremont to California. Doniphan and Kearny from Fort Leavenworth marched through New Mexico and Arizona all the way to San Diego. Taylor moved into northern Mexico, captured Monterrey, and essentially destroyed the Mexican army. At that point, it was assumed that we could sign a peace treaty with Mexico, as we'd taken all the land that we wanted. But Mexico did not have any desire to give up one-third of its territory. So the war went on through 1848. Santa Anna, or Santana, came back to Mexico and saw himself as the Napoleon of the West. His military skills, though, were just not up to par. He marched north to defeat old Zachary Taylor at Buena Vista, but ended up on the losing side. The Mexican government then had an internal revolt and did nothing while Winfield Scott launched America's first amphibious operation and captured the port at Veracruz. Scott then marched up the national road and defeated Santa Anna at Cerro Gordo. Again, the Mexican army was destroyed, and the war should have ended. But the Mexicans refused to sign the U.S. peace treaty. So Scott had to continue on to the Valley of Mexico and take the city itself. Vicious battles were fought at Churubusco, the Petrogog, and at Chapultepec Castle. In the end, the Mexican army was overwhelmed by Scott's excellent use of maneuver. Scott and Taylor were the two great American generals in the war. Taylor went on to become president. Scott continued his military career until the outbreak of the Civil War. Most of the great Civil War generals fought in the war with Mexico. Both Ulysses S. Grant and Robert E. Lee were with Scott's army. In fact, Winfield Scott believed that Robert E. Lee was the best soldier in the American army, Lee having directly contributed to the ultimate victory over Mexico. Lee placed the guns at Veracruz and did the reconnaissance at Cerro Gordo that actually won the fight for Scott. He also was directly responsible for outflanking the Mexican army at the Petrogal lava field outside of Mexico City. Not all the country supported the war, so anti-war protests are not a new thing. In fact, many Americans called the war President Polk's War. One group of Irish Catholic soldiers actually deserted and joined the Mexican army. They formed the St. Patrick's Battalion, and as they said, fought on the Mexican side. In the end, Scott captured the survivors of the St. Patricio Battalion, and he had them hung at the precise moment that the American flag was raised over the Chapultepec Castle tower. Shortly after the fall of the castle, Scott marched into the central square of Mexico City, and the Mexican government was forced to capitulate. They signed the American terms. The treaty gave the U.S., as in annexed, California, Nevada, Utah, most of Arizona, New Mexico, part of Wyoming, and part of Colorado. It also confirmed the southern boundary of the great state of Texas as being the Rio Grande. Well, for good or bad, President Polk completed Manifest Destiny. Some Americans considered keeping all of Mexico, but then that brought up the issue of slavery, and would slavery expand to Mexico, and also what would happen to the Mexican nationals? Would they all become U.S. citizens? In the end, the U.S. just kept the northern section, as that was relatively underpopulated. The instructors placed several excellent film clips from the History Channel and PBS into the course. Click the link below my icon to view the clips. Those marked by a red asterisk are of particular interest. The Irish ballad and film clip on O'Reilly and the St. Patricio Battalion will be part of the discussion for the thread topic in the next unit. Well, time to get back to the ranch. Have a great evening.